Well, good morning. It is Moose and Keith.
I thought it was just me. I was like, "Where's the open?"
you're at PIX. You're in the office. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm like, okay, we're just gonna go. We're gonna go. Hey, listen.
Good morning,
We're gonna start off with a bang. Yeah, good morning. We'll start off with a bang, the way that Aaron Judge did yesterday. Because can I tell you this? Let's be self-serving for a second. I'm taking all the credit in the world for Aaron Judge hitting the home run yesterday. Yep, it's all on me. 100% me. I did it.
I'll give you 100% credit. I'll give you 100% credit. Listen, it sets it up on Friday night. We're going to be at the stadium in the Bronx. Can't wait. Boys still don't know. My wife wanted before I left for work this morning, I was up early. I was up about 6:15 this morning and getting ready to leave. She's like, "You want to tell the kids today?" I was like, No. Wait till tomorrow. Because my youngest Gregory was not up yet, and so then it just makes it a better surprise. Friday night, sellout crowd. It's Garrett Cole bobblehead night, so I'm excited.
Yeah, this is awesome. And all right, on one hand, for your family thing, I think it's better to keep waiting because you know your children. Unless like the three boys are gonna be like, "Dad, I don't want to go to a Yankee game. I got my hockey practice." Like if you think that was gonna be the issue, then you tell them. But if that's not the issue, no, you surprise them.
No, I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Plus, they've got hockey. Like my day starts early Saturday. My youngest has got a hockey game at 7. Then Paul's got flag football at 9. Then Jackson's got flag football at 10. Then Paul's got a hockey game at noon. Then my wife is taking Jackson to a hockey game in Brooklyn later on the day at 5. Loaded day. So even though they're going to miss hockey practice on Friday, they're going to get plenty of hockey on Saturday.
Yeah. Life of a suburban family, right?
That's
the way it
rolls.
Exactly That's the way it rolls.
Right. That's exactly right.
I'm not surprised Judge hit 61 last night. Honestly, we've been, talking about it for a while now. And I jokingly say the reason why I take the credit for it is because on Bettor's Eye, and here, but on Bettor's Eye, we've been talking about the Judge home run every single day and the number and all that kind of stuff. And Stryker and I every single day have said, play it. Yesterday, and I think I said this to you too. I don't remember if I said it on the air. I was going to say not to play it. And I was going to do the reverse thing and it was going to happen. And it did. So that's why it's all because of me. That's why Judge hit the home run.
Well, that's great. Whatever reverse jinx, however way it works, Keith, he hit it, and it wasn't. It was a 394-foot laser shot over the left field wall, just out of the outstretched glove. I feel bad for that Toronto fan that had the glove reaching down, and kind of the Blue Jays broadcast was looking
Johnny Lasagna or something like that. There was some sort of
they were joking around about it, and it hit his glove. I mean, that would have been an impossible catch. It really would have been. I mean, that would have been an impossible catch. But listen, for Judge, it was a historic night. Now you get everybody raging on social media, after what Roger Maris Jr. had to say after the game last night, that he's looking at Judge, if he gets to 62, as the true home run champ, being clean at all. And you have everybody coming out and saying, well, he's not Barry Bonds. He doesn't have 73 home runs. And I get it. And that's the problem that Major League Baseball does have. And it's going to be dependent on how you view it, how you look at it. You can say, well, Barry Bonds was using PEDs in 2001, Balco, Cream, Clear. We know that. Victor Conti, Greg Anderson, everything like that. And we all went through that together. But people are going to excuse and say, well, majority of the league, we was facing pitchers that were on PEDs. Everybody was using PEDs at that stage, right? Ken Caminiti famously in that Tom Verducci piece in Sports Illustrated, so what, 75 to 80% of the league, something like that, were using performance-enhancing drugs. Might be off on the percentage there, but a majority of Major League Baseball players at the time were using it. So it's great. I mean, it just is. It's unfortunate what happened in the past in Major League Baseball. It's unfortunate that the record book got obliterated by that era. The popularity of the sport was brought back because of that era, because of the summer of '98 and Sosa and McGuire and Bonds and all the home runs that were being hit. So, there was no drug testing policy in place. That's another excuse that's given. However way you want to look at it, Judge is clean. And You want to view him as the true home run champ, you can. If you want to look at Bonds as the true home run champ and look away from the PED use, you can. You have every right to believe whatever the hell you want to believe. So that's the way to look. It was just a cool moment. It was great. And now he's coming back home on Friday night to take on an Oriole team, Keith, and with an opportunity to do it at home, which would be awesome. And I think now with the Yankees have winning the American League East, hitting home run number 61, seeing pitches really, really well. Be surprised if he didn't hit one on Friday night.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I got a few questions about Friday night, but I want to go back to some of the conversation here. And I think that it is a polarizing conversation, right? But I actually think that you legitimately nailed it, and not many people do, because the whole Bonds is the home run king or not the home run king, did PEDs, didn't fail tests, whatever it may be, right? Throw it to the side. Like, who cares? It's about what you think. If Roger Maris Jr. likes to believe that his dad is the all-time home run king and Judge would be if he gets to 62, fine. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And if, Joe Q Public says, no, Barry Bonds, it's in the stat book and I saw it with my own two eyes. Cool. I saw it too. And I loved it. And we go back to 1998. Yeah. I was a 17-year-old kid, or no, I was 18, 17? I don't know, whatever I was. I was loving it, like rushing home and trying to get all my homework done so that I could watch these two like Hulks hit home runs. Yes, I loved it. And at that age, I wouldn't have been thinking about like steroids and PEDs. Like, it wouldn't have been something that was necessarily on my mind. Like they're clearly cheating or anything like that. Maybe I would have been naive. But even if I was a 25 or 30-year-old man at the time and I was loving watching it, I loved watching it. I don't care who has the home run record. I'm also loving watching this Judge thing go on right now. And now I'm turning to, can he get 62? And can he stay ahead of Luis Ariz and Bogarts and all these guys to win the Triple Crown? That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, I am. I think it's a really cool story. I think it was a really cool moment. And I agree with you. I mean, just hopping around on Twitter this morning before we hit the airwaves today, Keith, and seeing people. I saw the Yes Network send out the clip of Maris Jr. last night after the game up in Toronto, giving his viewpoint, and I saw people reacting, this is dumb, this is stupid. Why? I mean, it's what he believes. I mean, if that's the way that he wants to look at it, just like you look at Barry Bonds, I could say, well, that's dumb because he was loaded on PEDs. I mean, it's a viewpoint. It's, but that's the problem Major League Baseball has, is there's really been no clarity, right? So, and I understand the Hall of Fame is different than Major League Baseball, but if we're going to celebrate Barry Bonds as the home run champ of all time, and baseball is going to look at his records as being legitimate, and I understand there's a difference between the two. I get it. Baseball doesn't handle the Hall of Fame. There's voters, vote people in and out, right? We all understand that, right? There's two different things. Let's establish that first and foremost. Second thing, well, Major League Baseball is going to look at all those being as legitimate. Well, then should make the argument that Bonds and Clemens and all these guys should have their day up in Cooperstown at one point in time too. So however way you want to look at it, here's the deal. I mean, he's doing it better than anyone this year. Like there was an argument, and no one, listen, Shohei Ohtani is on a different plane. He's doing it completely different, pitching and hitting. Keith used to do it every single day on MLB Network and everything like that. He's completely different. I'm not going to compare the two. But if I'm just looking at what Judge has done this year, he's better than Mike Trout. And I never thought I would say that, because Mike Trout is the best professional baseball player that I've ever seen. This year, he's not. Aaron Judge is the best position player in the world. That's how good of a year the Judge has had this season. He's done it all. He stayed healthy defensively in center field. You mentioned it in terms of going for the Triple Crown. He's a small percentage point ahead of Ariz out in Minnesota, who went 2 for 5 last night. Potential to win a Triple Crown, and they win the division, and he goes out there and hits home run number 61 last night. It was a really cool moment. Being here and, being able to hop on the news last night at 10 o'clock and be able to broadcast that and be on in the A block and then be on later on the show. It's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. Like, I drove home last night. I was like, that's a pretty cool night. That's a fun night when you have history being made up in Toronto and you're, a lead anchor in New York and being able to talk about it.
What was your opening line last night?
History is made in Toronto. It was like, because the two anchors, Corey and Tampson led me in, had a conversation, and then I took it from there. And
Okay.
later on in sports, we led into the K call on the Yes Network. So it was pretty sweet.
Nice.
From a guy that grew up in New York. My mom was from Brooklyn, my dad from from Manhattan, grew up in Rockland County. To be able to do that last night and be here for that moment was pretty awesome.
I'll answer this. No, I do not have a vote for the Hall of Fame. I don't believe you do either, Moose.
I do not.
Okay. Bond's the home run champ. That is, on paper, you are 100% correct. I saw it with my eyes. I do kind of lean that way also, but I don't begrudge people for the other side of things. Oh, here you go. Moose, if you catch home run number 62, and I know you're actually not sitting in that area, but if you were to catch number 62, what are you doing with the ball?
I'm not giving it back for I'm not giving it back for a couple signed baseballs and a bat. I'll tell you that. You catch home run number 62. I saw a report today that, if you put like the two balls together, 61 and 62, could be worth over $1 million. Now, obviously the home run last night landed in the Blue Jays bullpen. He had it last night. I saw the video of him handing it over to his mother after the game right outside the Yankees clubhouse, which was a pretty cool moment. But if you catch 62, that's a life changer. That's paying for school. That's paying for a lot of different things. No, I'm not giving that ball back. I mean, I would need something like you mentioned in terms of season tickets, whatever it might be. I'd want legend seats. Like I'd want to be able. I want legend seats for like 5 years or something like that. If I'm not going to be able to cash in.
Yeah, for 62. See, and again, like one of the issues does become what we do for a living, right? Because we clearly, like, if one of us were to catch the ball.
Do you know the pressure that would be on us to give the ball back?
Yeah, we'd be viewed upon as like a villain if we were to turn around and sell it, even though every other fan in the world, not in our industry, like would sit there and tell us that we're smart. Like, go get the $1 million, right? Like, you want that $1 million.
Well, here's the deal. Like, do you know what it's going to be like if that lands in a mass of humanity? Say he hits it into the left field seats, right? Doesn't land in a bullpen. Do you know how strong there are going to be people that are going to be like beating you down trying
it's going to be like the bottom of a football scrum, when people are like twisting things that they shouldn't be twisting.
Yes, that's exactly right. Oh. I mean, that is exactly it. If you come out with that baseball, you are going to have to survive. You are going to have to survive a lot for like a good 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. Baby J, I would vote Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. I think we had this conversation once before. I would put him in. Yeah, I would put him in. I saw what he did on the field, even if he was ballooned up. I wanted to read you this, a tweet from John Ewing over at BetMGM. He does the data, the public relations. This was before last night's game, and I thought this was fascinating. A bettor would be up plus 41 units if they were to have bet on Aaron Judge to walk in each of his first at-bats the last 6 games since his 60th home run. 82% of the bets were on Judge to either walk or get hit at plus 550 in his first plate appearance tonight at BetMGM. And guess what he did in his first appearance? He walked. So you're talking about, had you just said, you know what? And this is something that I toy with every once in a while. I don't actually bet this, but I toy with the concept of it. If you can pick one thing and just bet it every single game for a certain amount of time, like how many units would you be up? Plus 550, add that together. You're talking about almost, what is it, 40? I think that's 47 units. I'm trying to do the math really quick in my head. So I think you'd be up 47 units if you would have bet a walk last night. So that would have been 7 consecutive games since home run number 60 if you bet a walk in his first at bat. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane when you put it that way. But did you see Cone last night giving the chicken sound after the initial walk on the broadcast on Yes? And listen, I don't think he needs to be groove pitches. We joked around about that the other day. I was like, pitch to him, stop walking him. And I would say that more as a fan. I get the strategy. I mean, you don't want to get beat by him. He's the best hitter in the lineup. You know that he's locked in. So if he's going to expand his strike zone because he's chasing 61, then that's on him. But you're not going to give him kind of this cookie to go out there and hammer. he's been swinging the bat really well. I mean, that's the thing. So it's amazing where, the strategy when you look at it and his ability to take walks, because there are guys there facing that kind of pressure, Keith, that would probably expand their strike zone. But he has been so good this year that he's willing to take the walk and hand it off to the next guy. And luckily, Gleyber Torres here in the month of September. I mean, Gleyber Torres hit a $180 in August, a $180 in 100 at bats. Gleyber Torres this month is hitting well over 330, and he has turned his season around.
Rizzo's hitting better. I would say that the Triple Crown race, by the way, is something that's kind of helped Judge also. If Judge were batting 280 right now and hitting all these home runs, I think he would have started pressing a little bit more over the last 6 or 7 games. He would have been trying to just swing for it, knowing that what's the difference between me batting 273 or 288? It's not that big of a difference. But the fact that he's chasing a batting title also, this is going to put him in rarefied air. Like he already kind of is with 61 home runs, right? Like Yankees fans will never forget him. Baseball purists will never forget him. And most baseball fans will remember this as a magical season. But it had, let's say it ended at 62, right? But he batted 280. People would say he was a He-Man who was hitting home runs.
Yeah.
But now if he wins the batting title, he was the best hitter in the American League, the best home run hitter in the major leagues, and the RBI king. Like, and I've said it before, a plus defender too. Like, put all these things together. This is like, I'm entering Hall of Fame type of season. That's what, like, he's imprinting this. As long as nothing goes catastrophically wrong with the rest of his career, he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean it's a Hall of Fame season, right? So there's no doubt about that.
And I know I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I get it, but I mean, as long as nothing goes catastrophically wrong, if he continues to be a 30, 40 home run guy over the next 8 years of his career, guy's going to end up in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I would agree. I mean, he is, you look at him, he's got 61 home runs. The next closest guy is Kyle Schwarber with 42, right? Pete Alonso just jumped ahead of him with 131 RBIs. Judge has got 130 on the season. And, the race to be the batting champ in the American League, when you look at the two, him and Arise, he's ahead 3-13-4, 3-1-3-4. Arise is at 3-1-3-3. So, I mean, that is as small percentage as you can be ahead when you're looking at the batting average race and him trying to win the Triple Crown. I'd love to see it. It is as good of an offensive year as I've ever seen outside of the PED users. I understand, but I'm talking about in given the situation, given the circumstances, given the way that baseball is being handled now, given the velocity that you're seeing in the game, being the penchant for using and going to relievers, how starters are being used significantly different as well, Keith. I don't think I've ever seen anybody have a better year than what Judge is doing this season. And he hasn't had, the protection around him, and the team has won, and then they win the division. I mean, there's been so much around him, and all he does is talk about his teammate. Yeah. Talk about the fact that he wants to win. Like, he handles it with such class and grace as well. He's impossible not to root for.
Impossible to root for me, unfortunately, was Pete Alonso. Dude, he crushed me last night going 0 for. All I needed was a singular hit for my walk-off winner on Bettor's Eye, and he goes 0 for. I think he struck out 97 times last night, Pete Alonso. It felt like it, too.
I mean, how about it being an Eduardo Escobar night? He drives in 5.
Love it.
I mean, Esky with the night for the Mets last night.
I will give a shout out to our buddy John Jastrzemski. It was about a month and a half ago that he said, I'm paraphrasing because I may get a little bit wrong. It was something like, I have this weird feeling that Eduardo Escobar is going to lead to some wins in September. It was something to that effect. And yeah, Escobar has been excellent as of late. And the 5 RBIs last night when the Mets needed it, when the Mets were down to a bad baseball team again, and the Braves, I think, were winning 2-1 at the time. Like, your scoreboard scorebox watching, and you're sitting there going, Phillies are going to be up by, the Braves are going to be up by 1 game when all is said and done by the end of the night. But this is the reason why I love the Mets, right? Like, I don't love when the Mets are Metsing. But this is the reason why you love the Mets, because they've got these gritty players, some of the cast-offs also from other teams that are going out there and doing this. And when your star, Pete Alonso, has one of the worst nights of his baseball season, you can still win a game? And DeGrom and Scherzer weren't on the mound? These are reasons that you can believe in this Mets team in the postseason. These are things that Mets fans need to hold on to.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think the Mets have been a really good defensive team all season long. You look at the starting rotation with DeGrom and Scherzer. Obviously, Diaz has separated himself as the closer, and one of the best closers, if not the best closer this year, pound for pound in all of Major League Baseball, Keith. And offensively, they can beat you in a lot of different ways. Buck is a very, very good in-game tactician. They can hit the ball over the fence, and they don't need, though, the power in order to do it. I mean, there is a great separation. I think last I saw, the Braves had hit 230 home runs as a team. I think the Mets had hit like $160, something like that. I mean, there was a great differential between the two. And the Braves have been a team that, I don't think they've had a sacrifice bunt the entire year, right? So the home runs have served the Atlanta Braves.
And they strike out a lot.
And they do strike out a lot, right? So, but you look at the Mets, is they're able to put hits together, and I think you hit upon it. They've got professional hitters in that lineup. Not all the biggest, sexiest names, but the guys that you would count on and lean on, like an Alonso, like a Francisco Lindor, have come through really good. I would be a little concerned about Marte, though, because the news yesterday from Buck and the Mets that Starlin Marte, who suffered a fracture on one of his fingers after getting hit by a pitch, and the Mets have set a new baseball record, modern day record for a hit batsman this season. They've been plunked a lot, but the fact that he can't grip a bat as of yet, or grip a baseball, that's not a positive thing, obviously. If you were hoping to get Marte back come next week and come the postseason.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Marte, and I think he is important for them as well. Braves, it's a bad loss, by the way. Like, that was
terrible.
A game.
How do you lose to the Nats?
You can't lose that game.
How do you lose to the Nats? You're right there.
Yeah, like, this was setting up for the Braves to do what a lot of people thought they could do, right? Like, if they could hang around, wait for the Mets to falter and fail. The Mets didn't fail last night. They bounced back. It was fantastic for them. Shout out, by the way, Colin Cosell, the PA announcer for the New York Mets. He's been working on a new call with Edwin Diaz, and he nailed it last night. He put it on social media. Feel free to check it out. I believe it's just Colin Cosell on Twitter. Yes, he is the legendary grandson of Howard Cosell. Colin and I used to work together back in the day, local programming all the time, and we're friends and talk all the time. He's been working on this. He's been trying to nail it exactly when, like, on a downbeat of the Timmy Trumpet song, and he finally hit it last night. So, kudos to Colin Cosell. I know I went off.
That's awesome. You want to hear a strange story?
Yes. I'm here for it.
What's up? Wait, was it?
I am here for your strange stories. This is one of the reasons
I want to tell you.
You think about that for a second. One of the reasons why I love doing shows like this and being able to just be in this environment. Sure, we're giving out betting tips, and we'll do that. We're going to get Thursday Night Football props coming up in like 5-10 minutes. We're going to break down everything with that game, and we can tell you who's going to win games and stuff like that. I love stories. I'm in this for the story, so I'm going to sit back. And now I want to hear story time with Moose.
Oh, no. It's just you mentioned Howard Cosell. So we're going back like 9-10 years ago now, right? This was before we had Jackson, before we had any kids. Living in a condo in Harrison, New York. Or that's in Westchester, right? Suburb of New York City, for those that are not in the New York area. And so we were looking for houses, and we were looking all over the place. We were looking in Westchester, we ended up settling in Stanford, really was Westchester and kind of Fairfield County in Stanford, or right around the Stanford area, Greenwich area and stuff. So our real estate agent brings us to a house, and it's in Westchester, nice house, whatever. And we go into the house, and it was Howard Cosell's old house.
Wow.
And they had like all kind of memorabilia, like it was great pictures of him with like Muhammad Ali, this and that. Like I think it was his daughter was living there. She was, she was living there. She was looking to get rid of the house and whatever. But anyway, we're walking around, went up to the Olympics. I'm like, oh my God, this is Howard Cosell.
Wow.
We didn't buy the house,
All right,
obviously, but I
obviously,
mean
yeah.
that was the but it was so weird. It was like you walked in, it was like a museum.
That's cool. You know what? Maybe we'll get Colin on next week if we want. One of the voices of the New York Mets, we can kind of get a feel for what he's seen from a PA standpoint, public address announcer standpoint. I could shoot him a text and get him on. By the way, Harrison, one of my favorite when I was doing local programming, one of my favorite rivalry games was Harrison versus Rye. They called it the game, the football
Harrison
game.
Huskies. The
Yep, the
Huskies.
Harrison Huskies. I'm blanking on the name of their.
Then you obviously went to Sal's Pizzeria in Mamaroneck, right?
Oh, right over there in the yeah. That was one of the places. Yeah,
Sal's Pizza is tremendous.
Yep.
If you're ever in that area, go to Sal's Pizza. It's great.
Why can't I remember? I can't remember the name of the legendary Harrison coach. The Rye coach was Dino Gar. I remember him. The Harrison coach, Dino Gar, they called him the gambler because he would go for it on 4th down no matter what. Like he wasn't punting, wasn't kicking. It was just like this. Let's go.
Do you miss those days or no?
Sometimes. Can I tell? Like I don't necessarily miss the grind that was. And I think that maybe that pushed me to like be able to do what we're doing, right? But the calling an actual like high school SID, like an AD to get in touch with a head coach and then have to coordinate between their practices and like my jobs where I could just get on the phone with them for 40 minutes and get pronunciations of their students. But I think there is something special to doing those games, those high school games and getting those stories out about the kids and the parents having those memories forever. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed all of that. Like I said, that's where I met Steve Gelbs. Gelbs, the field reporter for the Mets. Like we worked together at MSU varsity for 3.5 years.
That's
did
awesome.
countless games. So yeah, a lot of cool.
Well, it's great experience, and kind of all the experience lead you to be kind of who you are today.
Yeah. I actually was just telling you, I had a guy ask me, he was like asking me for advice, a young kid or whatever. And that was one of the things that
run.
No, you know what's funny? Moose, that's good. That's really good. How many times though?
What's your best advice for this industry? Run.
Become a banker. Like I think that you have to have that hunger, and I know you have it because even like you've in quotes made it, yet you're still working 3-4 jobs just like I am, and you're bouncing from place to place, and you're not turning. You're like, and obviously the things that we do now are bigger than it was when it was like Cablevision local programming or things like that. But I just said are you willing to put that effort in? And one piece of advice I got when I was young was that from a producer that said I was going to have to move. I couldn't stay in New York, and I didn't agree with that. Okay. And luckily, I actually never did. I stayed here, right? So something I always say to young kids when they ask me for advice, when they're in their 20s or whatever, I say, I will not tell you have to move, but would you be willing to if that option was there? Are you willing to move to Alabama to be the talk show host in the afternoon on whatever their local radio station is for $22,000 a year just to cut your teeth? If you're willing to do that, then this is for you. I'm not saying you're going to have to, but are you willing to do it? And you could read it, Moose, right away. When you see someone's face, when they go, you're like, in your head, you go, yeah, you don't want this.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think it's also the sacrifice that you have to make on personal time because, I mean, you want to talk about great balance in order to make it in this industry, like life balance. There's not life balance early on when you're breaking in.
No, there isn't. There's
not.
You're right.
I mean, and I understand people can say, well, that's the same thing in the finance world. That's it. Well, no doubt. I agree with you, but it's there's also a case in the finance world where you can make significantly more money where you're working 19 hours a day. But you've got a huge bank account. Like there's a lot. Do
you remember those adorable checks that we were making early on in our career?
Right.
They were cute,
my
weren't
first
they?
job out of college, I was making $7 an hour. I mean, that's it. I mean, at a local radio station. And I graduated from Syracuse University. I was making $7 an hour, working a split shift, working from 5 to 10 in the morning, and then coming back and working, 2 to 7 at night. I was doing that 5 days a week. So, there's a lot of things that go into it in terms of, but the drive, I think for anybody that wants to be great in whatever you do, there's got to be a hunger and a drive within. If that's not there, I don't care what you decide to do, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah, it crosses over for everything, but yeah, and especially in this field because everyone wants to talk sports, right? I mean,
Yeah,
like
but that's
if you're a
sound
sports
advice.
fan, I
That's
mean,
good advice that you're giving. I remember that we had an intern at the Fan, a couple interns. This is going back like when there was an internship program. It's going all the way back to 2006, right? So we're going back like 16 years ago. Interned, and I bring this story up because intern that summer, guy was, kid had a good head on his shoulders and whatever, and this and that. And, kind of pulled him aside at one point in time. And he pulled me aside at one point in time and asked me kind of for advice. And I said, well, you have to understand, like, you're going to have to work holidays when your friends are going out on the weekends. You're going to have to work. Like, it comes along with it. If you want to cut through, you got to be available. You can't say no when opportunities, because you never know when the next opportunity is going to present itself. So I told him that, like, he interned in the summer of 06. Now, go fast forward a couple months, sitting there with my dad at Shea Stadium, Mets Cardinals game 7, the Andy Chavez catch, the Carlos Beltran taking called strike 3 from Adam Wainwright, right? Sitting there. It has to be like the 4th or 5th inning, get a tap on my shoulder. The same kid, right, had graduated from school, taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He goes, thanks for the advice, man. I went into finance.
wow.
I go, I don't do whatever you want to do. I'm just telling you what it's going to be. He goes, no, he goes, I wanted to do something else. I didn't have the drive to do that. I didn't want to do that. I go, I mean, do what you love in life. But it's just like the funniest thing ever. Yeah.
That's great. That's, you know what though? But you probably saved that kid a lot of early pain in a career, right? Like, had he chased it, he would have been turning stuff down and not getting work, and then maybe he would have hated you for it. Like, he might have looked back at, like, Moose gave me bad advice. Like, he might have changed it, but you gave him great advice.
Well, I think you just got to be real and genuine.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the truth. Like, tell people the truth, right? And let them have an understanding of what they're getting into, because I think you got to go into it with your eyes wide open and have the understanding of what it takes, and the work ethic that it takes to be able to kind of cut through. Because if you're not that, if you're going to just paint it all rosy and everything's great and everything's wonderful and this and that, well, it's not. Because, Keith, I'm sure you know a lot of guys. I know a lot of guys that burned out, that went to, I know a couple buddies of mine that right out of school went to ESPN. And no knock on ESPN. It's not that. It's just that, it is what it is, and worked and worked and worked. And after a while, they weren't kind of cutting through or getting to where they wanted to do. And now they're in pharmaceutical sales, or they're running a real estate business down in Florida. They're doing a lot of different things. They're not just doing what they didn't, because after a while, they just didn't want to do it. It wasn't leading to what they wanted to do in life. And you only got one crack at this.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many things that are running through my mind, like early stories of our career. That we don't have to do that all right now. Like, we can definitely spread this out. Jacob Asa won on there. Moose just gave me a painful memory. All right, feel free. Oh, because of the Mets Cardinals. Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, that was those were rough times.
But that was that was a fun series for me, because I was on the road with Russo in St. Louis for that series.
That's fun.
And it was fun. We had a good time. We had good restaurants, fun times. I remember we went to the St. Louis Rams Seahawks game on that Sunday when we were out there. It was I'd never been to St. Louis before, and it's a great baseball city. But it was unbelievable. It was a fun run, even though it ended in depressing fashion if you're a Met fan. So they should have won the World Series that year. They're the best team in baseball.
Traveling with Russo, is that like traveling with a rock star?
Yeah, when you go to a restaurant, it's not, because like nobody in St. Louis at that stage, right? Like he wasn't on ESPN like he is now with Stephen A. Smith. So, I mean, you walk around the city, it is like New York City for sure. I mean, people knew him left and right. When you're in St. Louis, when you get to the stadium, it is. When you get to a sports facility, it is, right? So, like, we were sitting there watching Rams Seahawks. A couple people are sitting down for me, and my buddy Craig Germain, who now works for the NFL Network, and Ron Darling are sitting there watching the game, because it was an off day of Mets and Cardinals.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Fun.
All right, so we've gone off the rails, which is good, which is something that you will continue to get from
it
Moose
back
and Keith.
then.
Yeah, we will. Remind everybody, download the Bettor Sports Network app. Go into Google Play, everywhere that you would download that. Download it, subscribe, make make an account. It's free. Don't worry about that. And then you can smash that fun button. You can call us in. You can share your stories here on the chat as well, like Jacob Assa 1 just did also. Let's do one break. I think we do one break. We're only going till 11 o'clock. We got Joe Dolan coming up. He's going to take over for us from 11 to 12 every Thursday. Moose has all of his obligations with PIX and covering all the New York teams. And I'm stepping over to MLB Network with Bettor's Eye this afternoon as well. We have an early show at noon. That's why I dressed up for you. See that? Like I feel it was going to be too tight of a window for me to change my clothes. So I dressed up for you. All right. I did that for you.
You look sharp. I love the baby blue. It brings out your eyes.
It really does, right?
Oh, wow. Does.
Yeah. When we get back.
Had a moment.
Yeah, we did. We just had a moment. You made the tan guy blush. When we get back, I got a list of Thursday night football player props that I'm into, and I'm going to want you to tell me yay or nay, whether you like them. I also have a 5-leg parlay that I'm kicking around as something we might want to tinker with, and you may want to add something, take something away from it. I think we got a fun one tonight, Dolphins and the Bengals. So we'll be back. We'll break that game down fully. We'll catch up with Joe Dolan at the end of the hour. He is Moose and Keith. This is Moose and Keith on Bettor Sports Network.
Front Yard Fantasy with Simon, JL, and Coop.
JL, I think this is the game everyone's been waiting for, and the moment in this game that we are probably going to have to talk about for at least 21-19, and we got to talk about it. The play of the game, the butt punt.
The butt punt.
Punted straight into Trent Sherfield's abyss between his legs is where that
booty
football
patootie.
It was straight up there. It could not have been aimed better up that tuchus. Like, he just went for it. Like, you look at the picture, shout out USA Today photographer that caught that image, because wow, moment of impact, and you can really see just how well aimed between the cheeks that ball was. And Craig said, did y'all see Mark Sanchez's tweet to the punter? I did. Mark Sanchez tweets, stay out of my lane, bro.
That's pretty good.
I love all these self-aware tweets yesterday. Mark Sanchez, Orlovsky, like they're just coming in and like poking fun of themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty good stuff right there.
Corey, Nando, and Friends, presented by Mayo Media on Bettor Sports Network.
Speaking of TV, last night I tried to watch Aaron Judge.
Did you watch the K-Rod broadcast?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Look, I went to ESPN Plus and I'm like, I want to watch this K-Rod. Bonds brought up when Clemens hit him on his piece of armor. And Clemens like, oh, it was a strike, man. It was a strike.
No, like, Clemens was like, if you wear, and I don't blame Clemens, if you wear that thing, right, that piece of armor, and you on top of the plate like that, target practice. I'm going to see if I can hit that joint.
And Clemens, it was a strike. Get off the plate is basically what he said.
Yeah, exactly. Get off the plate.
Can you imagine the three of them? Like, you're Michael Kay, and you're sitting there with Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez,
and Roger.
Three guys who should be in the Hall of Fame and are not. Like, who should have been like first ballot, slam dunk Hall of Famers.
That's the problem with the game.
We should get them on the show. All three of them together on this show.
That'd be cool. Corey, Nando, and Friends. They're the friends.
They're the friends. I mean, why not, right? They seem like nice guys.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
I started watching the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix last night, which I knew a lot.
That looks pretty freaky, man. Is it as frightening and kind of eerie as it looks?
Yeah, it's disturbing. Like, there's no.
You think? He ate people, Ray. It better be disturbing to you.
I know the story. He ate people, and I murders. I knew, but I didn't know he was drunk all the time. And
well, Ray, I mean, we've all been there. You get the munchies when you're drunk. That would be actually a defense in court. Your Honor, I was drunk the whole time. I was hungry and I needed food, and my neighbor was there. Right. What am I supposed to do?
I thought he had like beer cans all over his place. There was a lot of Miller and Bud. I guess he was not only was he a person of opportunity with the killings, he was a beer drinker of opportunity. Because I don't think you normally do one and the other. You usually do one or the other.
I don't want to tell AB or Miller how to do their business, but don't go marketing that Jeffrey Dahmer loves your beer while he was eating kidneys.
Three, 2, 1. It's over. Get it done. It's over. Feel bad about playing a highlight over Coolio.
Yeah, that was like it came out of nowhere. It popped up on my feed. 59 years old, man. Wow.
Yeah, I was sitting here in the newsroom, like Coolio's dead. And like, people
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, yeah, he's dead. 59. Way too young, man.
Way too
59 years
young.
old.
Yeah.
You know what? I just got pitched a guest. A guy from runs sports auctions, memorabilia auctions. Talking about
Steiner?
the home run ball. No. Guy Chris Ivy.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get him on next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get him on next week. Talk about the Judge home run balls and talk really about memorabilia exploding. It's all over the place.
Yeah, I love this. I love that we're going to continue to do this to Ernie and Keith behind the scenes. We're just going to mention names of guests and just talk. We'll have our pre-show meeting on the air right here. I love it. I'm all about this action.
Let's get into the Thursday night game tonight. Bengals, number one. The uniforms they're wearing tonight are tremendous. The white Bengal uniform,
glorious. Maybe the best uniforms I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, just unbelievable. So I can't wait to see those. So they're home taking on the Miami Dolphins. And right now, you look at their favorite when you look at Cincinnati as they're coming off the daylight victory this past weekend against the Jets and the Dolphins. Oh, look at them. Mike McDaniel's team is 3-0 to start the year.
Yeah, since he opened as 2-point favorites, we've seen the line balloon up to 4. Now it's 3.5 or 4, depending on what book you're looking at. And this is clearly all about Tua, right? The book is trying to figure out, is Tua going to play? If he plays, how healthy is he going to be? What's this going to do to the offense for the Miami Dolphins? Is this going to turn into more of a running game? But I think Cincinnati can stop the run. Cincinnati's been struggling against the pass all year. So there's a lot of weird questions to be had for tonight's game. I think Tua plays tonight. I think they inject him with whatever he needs to be injected with to be fine. If they were willing to put him back in last week after that collapse of a body, which clearly looked bad, I think they'll play him tonight.
I would agree with that. I mean, I would probably think that Tua does play. So then do you see value with the Dolphins?
A little. I see value. I still see value in their wide receivers. And I think if you want to look, and they're not on my top list, but like a Tyreek Hill anytime touchdown, I'm cool with it because he didn't get one last week, so he probably will bounce back with one this week. I think you could look at the Jalen Waddle receptions number, right? If it's 4.5, and I've seen it be anywhere between 3.5 and 4.5, like you can look at that number also and maybe be happy. Honestly, most of my plays are on the Cincinnati side tonight. I think Cincinnati wins. I'm not picking a side. I typically don't do that. I think you're learning that. I go more player props. I only take the sides incorrectly when it's the Kansas City Chiefs for a survivor. Still angry.
But who's but just on a side note, before I give you how the game, I kind of think how the game plays out tonight. Do you see so the Miami Dolphins are practicing at the University of Cincinnati?
Yeah. Yes, I saw
and
this.
And they're leaked out.
Yeah, and now apparently it was a student who like works for Barstool as a student reporter. So now Barstool is under fire for this, even though there's no proof that they would have like sent the kid there. I think he just snuck in and he started leaking these videos.
It's just crazy. It's just great. But listen, even if Tua plays, I like Cincinnati tonight. Yeah. I mean, I do. And I understand that Jacob Asa makes a good point in our chat session that Eli Apple's in trouble. Yeah, I get it. But I'm looking at a not 100% Tua, right? Wherever the percentage is, he's not at 100%, right? So you're also buying high on the Miami Dolphins too, coming off a game in which they held on for dear life, got outgained by the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo should never have lost that game, but they did, right? Short work week after that kind of performance against Buffalo. Now going on the road in Cincinnati, taking on a Bengal team that gets T. Higgins back last week. He played really, really well. Boyd's a tremendous wideout. Jamar Chase, we know how good he is. And I don't know if the Dolphins necessarily have the rush to be able to take advantage of that Bengal offensive line. I also think the Bengals made the adjustment last week about the Jets, where you saw early in that game, it was more of a timing, precision passing game, getting the ball out of Burrow's hands as quickly as they possibly could early on until they established themselves. And then they had some of the longer developing pass plays down the field. I just like the Bengals tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I think defensively, Hendrickson's going to be able to get after Tua. The Bengals defense has played well to begin the year, played well against Pittsburgh, played well against the Dallas Cowboys. And I get they have not seen a combination of Waddle and Tyreek Hill at the wide receiver spot. I think they come back home. I think the Bengals even up their record, get to 2-2. I think the Miami Dolphins, a little bit of regression after their statement victory against Buffalo on Sunday.
And Miami has struggled to stop wide receivers. So if there's something you can hang your hat on in Cincinnati, it's not the fact that you can keep Burrow upright. It's that Burrow's got to get the ball out of his hands pretty quickly. And when you got guys like Chase who could take a 3-yard slant and take it to the house, you like that. When you got guys like T. Higgins, who has some of the best hands in football, and he can make some yards happen after the catch, we like that. And then Tyler Boyd is probably the most slept on third wide receiver in all of the NFL. And Joe Mixon can catch a football too. So yeah, I think Burrow's going to, carve up the Miami defense. Now, with that being said, the over might be the play. And typically you don't do the over on a Thursday night football game, but where are we at? I just looked it up. Is it still 47? Do you have it in front of you?
47.5.
47.5. Again, I would have a slight lean on the over. I think both teams will score points. I think that you're going to see Cincinnati score in the high 20s, low 30s, and I think you're going to see Miami score in the 20s. So that'll get you into the over 47.5.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you're going to get points tonight. I think the game's going to probably get a little bit loose. Yeah. I think Miami, because of, I don't want to say it's, I think you've seen teams, especially teams that are kind of, learning how to win games. And Miami is 3-0 on the year. So, but when you have the kind of statement victory that they had, sometimes you see a little bit of a regression. I think you'll see that with the Dolphins tonight. That's why I like Cincinnati. I think the Bengals found themselves a little bit, gained a little bit of confidence. I think you also saw the importance of T. Higgins in that offense.
Oh, yeah.
He is a great wide receiver. I understand not as great as Jamar Chase, but what he is able to do for Burrow in that offense, it cannot be replicated. So getting him back is of prime importance. You saw that Sunday against the Jets, and I think you'll continue to see that tonight against the Dolphins.
And that's where I'll start. So I'll go with T. Higgins over 63.5 receiving yards. I've seen a different number on some of the different books. The best one I found was on FanDuel, -113 for the over 63.5. 64 or more receiving yards 2 of the 3 games this season. Obviously, the game that he didn't touch that was the game he got the concussion. And then you kind of just look at his career. So over the last 16 games for Higgins, 11 times he's gone 64 or more receiving yards. Miami 31st in passing defense, meaning 31st in passing yards allowed per game, almost 300 per contest. And then if you go DVOA, right, that's the defensive value. Basically, it's just how good your defense is versus how bad your defense is. I'm trying to layman's terms basically. They have one of the worst issues with stopping number 2 wide receivers. He has Xavier Howard. He's awesome. But past that, the second wide receiver has been able to eat. The Dolphins are giving up a 28.3% DVOA against number 2 wide receivers. That's the 23rd worst in the NFL.
Beautiful. I mean, that is a great breakdown right there. Love it.
So that's Higgins. Thank you. Let's go next. I got a list. We'll go Jamar Chase next. So again, got to shop your books. And again, depending on who we're sponsored by, and right now we're not sponsored by anybody, so we can shop every book. So I'm going to go to DraftKings for this one. They had plus money. So plus 105, anytime touchdown for Jamar Chase. If you put it in a parlay, it goes down to even money. We'll discuss that in a minute. But 35 targets this season, which means you're getting the volume, you're getting the opportunities for catches and touchdowns. 20 regular season touchdowns so far for Jamar Chase in the season plus that he's been in the NFL. 1 touchdown at least in 11 games that he has played in the NFL. And then you're looking at Miami again, the 31st in passing yards allowed, and they've given up 7 passing touchdowns through 3 games. So if you're going to go for an anytime touchdown, I think he's the best value at plus 105. Again, that's DraftKings. So plus 105 on DraftKings for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime Chase lines up in any game, regardless of matchup, he's a threat because they look for him in a lot of different ways. They look for him in those slants. They can look for him in the deep passing game when you get into the red zone as well. If they're not going to throw a high point football to, T. Higgins or maybe a little dump off to Joe Mixon, you've seen that. They're going to look Chase's way. So, yeah, good value. I mean, And I think everything you look at it where I think it's going to be a Bengal passing night against the Dolphins for everything that you just mentioned statistically about that defense.
And then here's one that might go against what you thought me say 5 minutes ago when I was a little bit leery of Tua. I still don't think Miami's going to be able to run the ball that well. And if they do, I don't think it's going to be Chase Edmonds. Now, listen, Chase Edmonds is fast. Can he break one run for 35 yards and immediately make me a loser on this play? Yes. It's not my strongest play, but it's a play where I find some value. The under 33.5 rushing yards, the best number you can find is on BetMGM at -115 for Chase Edmonds. 3 games this year, he's had 25 rushing yards, 33 rushing yards, 21 rushing yards. We're starting to see the Dolphins actually lean a little bit more towards Mostert. Mostert has one more carry this season than Edmonds does. Mostert has actually been on the field running more passing routes as well. So again, if you look at adjusted numbers for the way Dolphins run the ball too, I'm not going to bore you with all of these fractions of numbers. The under 33.5 is a really solid, sound play, but you have to have the stomach, the fortitude to root for an under, because rooting for unders kind of stinks.
Yeah, it does. But I think you could also look at game flow and it could work in your way as well, right? You mentioned Edmonds only averaging 3.4 yards per carry. If you think this is going to be a game in which the Dolphins are going to have to keep pace, and I don't think they have the ground attack. I mean, you look at it. I mean, they've ran the ball 58 times as a team this year for just 192 yards, right? So they're not emphasizing the run. That's not something of prime importance. Now, that could be by Mike McDaniel wanting to establish Tua early on in his season. But if you look at game flow and think that the Bengals are going to be able to put up points and maybe Miami's trailing in the game tonight, well, then that would also take away from Miami wanting to run the football because then the clock is their enemy.
So there you go. That leads me to my next one. And again, I'll go to the DraftKings site. Again, all these sites have boosts and deals that you can work with.
Yeah.
One that caught my eye, and they've been doing it all season long, is the early win, right? So what the early win play is, and again, you have to press the little boost button at the top, and they send it to you in your email. You have to activate it first, and then it'll show up on your app, or if you're in a state where you can do it on your laptop. So you take either team on the money line. So let's say you and I believe that Cincinnati is going to get out to a good start. We think Cincinnati is going to be leading at some point by 7 points or more. Even if they lose the game, we win. So you could take Cincinnati for argument's sake. I think they're -180 on the money line. Let's say you want to take that number, right? And you're going to put whatever amount of money you're going to do. If Cincinnati loses the game, but they still were up by 7 points at any point during that game, you win. So that's one of the benefits of making that bet through DraftKings.
Yeah, I like it. And I do think the Bengals are going to jump out early in this game. I get the Dolphins could win the toss. I think they're going to get a stop early, play off the emotion of the crowd, coming off the victory. They are still, 1-2 on the season. I think the Bengals jump out on top early.
Last one for you, and I told you I had a parlay here. I got 5 legs to it. Let's see what you like, what you don't. Yeah, and over the couple of weeks that we've been doing this, I think we're 1-1. We hit once, we missed once. So right, this is week 4. No, we hit twice, we missed once. So we're 2-1 right now on these parlays. Jamar Chase to get a touchdown.
Like that.
T. Higgins, buy it down to 59.5 receiving yards instead of the 63.5.
Love that.
Bengals to top 21 points, meaning 20.5 points.
Yeah.
All right. Miami.
So 21, I win.
Yeah, 21 points, you win.
Okay.
All right, so we'll go to Miami, 17 points. They have to score 17, you win.
Okay.
Joe Burrow, buy the number down, 254.5, so 255 passing yards.
Okay.
Again, I'm on DraftKings on this one. It's plus 425, but they're giving you a parlay boost, a same game parlay boost for, I think it's up to 4 games of this week 4 slate. So if you want to use one of those tonight, you get a boost on every leg that you add. Since this was 5 legs, it ended up boosting at 30%. So my plus 425 went to plus 552. Again, it's Chase touchdown, Higgins to get 60 yards, Bengals 21 points, Dolphins 17 points, Burrow 255. All of those are overs.
Which one of those 5 are you the most nervous about?
I probably Jamar Chase, because an anytime touchdown it's like asking for a home run, right?
Yeah, but I like everything else. I mean, I don't dislike that. I mentioned before, and we were just talking about it moments ago. I think he can score a touchdown any game that he lines up, right? And how important he is. And you mentioned about the targets that he is getting here through the first 3 games, so the opportunity is there. But that would be the one I'd be the most nervous about. Don't think it's not attainable. Of course it does, but I like everything else about that.
Yeah, I mean, with 5 legs, I'd rather that. Like, if I could have gotten this a little bit higher. I mean, listen, I could have gone with the Burrow regular number instead of the 255. We could have gone into the 270s. That would raise my number a little bit. The Higgins one, I could have gone up to, I think you could jump to 66.5 if you wanted. Probably could have gotten this to about 7-1 odds, but I'll take the 5.5 to 1 odds.
We're gonna welcome because we're only taking till 11 today.
Yes.
I got stuff here at PIX. You got stuff at MLB Network, so we're only taking it till 11. How was your mom's birthday last night? All right.
Oh man, it was awesome. Got a strawberry shortcake was the cake that we got her. That I went to the local bakery, got that. Everyone was happy. We had the chocolate pudding pie. My sister got a whole bunch of Italian food from this really good Italian restaurant in her area. It was fantastic. Mom was very happy. Got her a winter jacket because she's always cold, and she comes to all the boys' sporting events.
Oh, good.
Yeah. She was in heaven. She loved it. Yes.
Well, happy birthday, Mama Irizarry.
Thank you.
Want to bring Joe aboard here?
Yeah, Joe Dolan, what's up, man? How you doing? Oh, we can't hear him yet. Can we let's pot him up?
I think he's muted.
I think you might be muted. That's okay. Let's just blame Ernie on this one. Is this Ernie or Keith's fault? Who do you want to blame?
Joe, you look great, even though we can't hear you.
You do. I like the hat. Beard looks manicured.
Now he looks completely frazzled because he has no idea why the audio's not working.
So let's do something really fast. We only have like 2 minutes here. So pull him off the screen, television wise. Hopefully we can try to figure that out behind the scenes. We'll try to sneak him on for the 2 minutes. Yeah. If not, if we don't get on with Joe, I'm gonna speak for him.
11.
Yeah, he's gonna come away at 11. I'm gonna speak for him. Joe loves every prop play that I just gave out there. I'm just gonna say it out loud and hope that I'm right. Joe, do we get you now?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
So I think there was a little bit of a wiring issue with my microphone. Like as if anything, guys couldn't go even more wrong this week. I am having the week from hell.
Well, go ahead. We're storytellers here, so as much as we want your props, I give us like the 60-second edition of.
Let's do that. I live in South Carolina, which I mean, fortunately, like I'm thinking of everybody in Florida, but I live in South Carolina. I have to fly north tomorrow for 2 weddings, one of which I'm the best man on Sunday. And I'm flying out during a hurricane. So there is the gist of what's been going on with my week.
Have you thought about moving your flight up, Joe?
I can't. I got to work, man. I got a company to run. Like,
have you ever given a best man speech before?
No.
Can I give you one piece of advice?
Please.
Don't start it off with, for those of you who don't know me.
Okay.
Don't do that. It's the biggest throwaway line. Just own the stage as if everyone knows you, because if they don't, they will within 30 seconds.
Too long either. I mean, everyone wants to get back to having fun.
Yeah,
no story that's too raunchy.
Piece. You don't have to go on.
Oh, I won't tell any raunchy stories now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want the marriage
to end that stories, guys. I have no raunchy.
I've lived a very boring life.
Joe, we actually only have you for about 45 more seconds, maybe a minute. What's your top play tonight for Thursday Night Football?
My top play tonight for Thursday Night Football is Joe Mixon. And I'll get into that on Better Sports today. But basically, he's vastly underproducing based on his role so far. No injury designation. Love Joe Mixon tonight.
All right, so Joe Mixon there. I have Jamar Chase anytime touchdown. Higgins 64 yards receiving.
How about when you look at the game? When you look at Cincinnati right now as a 3.5 point favorite, what do you like?
I like Cincinnati.
So do I.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are a hot team right now. I like Cincinnati.
Joe, are you going to go for laughs or cries at the wedding? What are you thinking?
Laughs, probably. I don't know. I haven't even started the speech yet. So.
When are you working on that?
On the plane.
I work quickly.
Well, I'd be you're the best man.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Right now, you're sounding like the average man right now.
I work under the gun. I work under the gun, guys.
Oh, you're more.
That's how I like to do it.
I got you. More of a pressure guy. I got you. Well, Joe, thanks for doing the show at 11 for us. We appreciate it. All right.
Oh, I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to do the show at 11. So.
Definitely, we got to get you on the show for a longer spot with us at some point soon.
Appreciate it, boys. Have a great day. Enjoy the game tonight.
Yeah, safe flight.
Safe flight, definitely. Yeah.
All right, that's it for Keith and myself. Keith's off to do MLB Network stuff. Check him out there. Bettor's Eye, 1 o'clock. I'm on Picks later on tonight. Check that out. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning at 10. Enjoy Thursday Night Football. We'll be reacting to that, and we'll be maybe breaking down Joe Dolan's speech at some point next week as well.
Hope so. I hope so.
Have a good Thursday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bruce and Keith.
Later.
See you.
Better Sports Network. It's sports talk done better.
You can't be happy if you're a fan of Denver right now. I know they're 2-1. They look horrendous, man.
Well, how about this player? I almost put him in, and then last second took him out, figured I'd give him another week. What about Javonte Williams? Would he be a trend down type of player at this point? He's still getting the carries. He's running all right. He's just not scoring. That's the problem. And the big thing is when you look at his production from a total basis, 11 passes week 1? It was a lot.
I think you stay the course with him. I know, again, people are so frustrated. Guys, why are you surprised, man? We all know Javonte Williams is the best player in that backfield. It's clear. But people who play fantasy need to understand and I said this before the year, there are certain players that coaches love. Melvin Gordon is one of those players. Is he as dynamic, explosive? No. But he does a lot of the little things that coaches love. Those guys are going to get their touches. You have to understand that. So should Javonte Williams be the main back? Yeah. And we've started to see it shift a little bit. I know you're frustrated because Gordon got the touchdown, but I don't know why you're surprised by this. They told you this before the year. It was more like 50-50 last year. It's not now. You can't sit here and complain about it. Like, you act like this came out of nowhere. I can't believe Melvin Gordon is playing snaps.
You're not talking about me, are you?
No. Anyone who is sitting there and is just stunned that Javonte Williams is not getting, like, all these snaps. Now, could it get better as the season goes along and they start to go, you know what? Javonte's more explosive. We need him on the field now. I mean, they're 2-1, okay? So that's the problem with some of these teams that win games. They think, oh, we won, so everything is good. But let's look at the snaps. So Javonte Williams played 33. Melvin Gordon played 28. The biggest problem is Mike Boone played 14. That I don't get. Javonte Williams and Gordon each ran 13 routes. Boone, 11. 5 targets for Williams, 6 for Melvin Gordon. Javonte had 15 carries, Gordon 12. Javonte Williams had 20 looks. So he had 15 carries, 5 targets, and he caught 3 passes. So he had 18 touches. You're going to complain about a running back getting 18 touches? Come on, man. He's better than Melvin Gordon, no doubt. But Javonte's not getting 35 touches. They had the ball a lot last night. Does it suck that they took him out near the goal line? Absolutely.
Straight eye formation. They hand it up to Gordon, running left. Gordon into the end zone. Touchdown, Denver.
This is not anything shocking here.
The Playbook with Fensty and Ronis, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Better Sports Today, Thursday Night Football edition. My name is Joe Dolan. I've been enjoying doing these little Thursday morning shows for you as we get hyped for a Thursday Night Football game. And fortunately, you know, we've had a couple of good slates so far. Pittsburgh and Cleveland last week wasn't exactly a rip snorter, but today we're going to have a nice game tonight between the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals, one of the 2 remaining undefeated teams in the NFL, the only undefeated team in the AFC, against the defending AFC champions, and I'm excited to preview that with you guys today. So anyway, my name is Joe Dolan. You can follow my work at fantasypoints.com. You can follow me on Twitter at FG_Dolan. I have a big mouth, so I'm really excited to talk to you guys on Twitter. I'm excited to talk to you guys here. I'm excited to talk to you all about football. I know I say excited too much, but hey, this is live radio, so I can't exactly edit myself. So Miami at Cincinnati tonight. Good on the Dolphins getting out of Miami. First and foremost, my thoughts with anybody impacted by hurricane, now tropical storm Ian. You heard my sob story on the previous program with the guys. like it's just horrible how these things happen, and I really hope everybody is safe and everybody's family is safe, and I hope that this show, that the Bettor Sports Network, and I hope that Thursday Night Football is going to give people the reprieve that they need. Fantasy football and betting going to give people the reprieve that they need. When, not to get on my soapbox here, but I have a platform, so I'm going to use it. When COVID was happening, and well, I mean, it still is. It's still affecting people. But when we were at the height and the greatest uncertainty of the pandemic, and everything was being canceled, and there was people nowhere, and you can't go out to eat, and you can't hang out with friends, and you can't do anything fun, really. One of the things that people always said was, well, the NBA shouldn't play and the NFL shouldn't play and all this shouldn't play because sports don't matter. And, my counter to that was, if things could be done safely, and they were done relatively safely, I would say, sports matter because they don't matter. Sports matter because they give us something to focus our energy on when we would rather be focusing on anything other than what's going on in life. And I understand that, like, being able to watch this game or listen to this game, or you follow this game or follow a fantasy football team or follow a couple of bets could be a really impactful thing for Dolphins fans who are impacted by this. So I just really want people to understand I'm thinking of them. Dolphins fans, I'm thinking of you. I think that this game happening tonight is probably going to be a good thing for a lot of people because, again, it doesn't matter, but it gives you something with a lot of like-minded people to focus your mind on. And that can be a really great thing when it's something that doesn't matter. If you're a sports fan and somebody says, "Oh, sports, they don't matter." Well, what if the person telling you that's a gardener? Oh, gardening doesn't matter. Just go to the supermarket and get food. No, it's a hobby, okay? And we like those things. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. Let's get into the Dolphins and the Bengals here. I'm with you for the next hour, by the way. I'm here until noon, and the format of this show is simple. We're going to talk Dolphins, going to talk Bengals, then we're going to talk some bets and some props that maybe stand out to me. So let's look at what Miami's doing right now. This game, by the way, Cincinnati is favored by 3.5, 48.5 the total. Now, Cincinnati has laid some stinkers. So, on the surface, that looks like a bad number for the Bengals, but, they were in the bet on spots last week. 0-2, defending AFC champions, must-win game, ended up covering the spread. With the Dolphins right now, the old adage, good teams win, great teams cover. They're doing both. They're 3-0 straight up and 3-0 against the spread. But the Dolphins are the only undefeated team in the AFC remaining, despite the Bills running 51 more plays and outgaining them by 287 yards, 497 to 285 yards rather, last week. Okay? The Dolphins were the first team to win a football game in the NFL while running fewer than 40 plays since 2018. The team that did that in 2018 was the Ryan Tannehill quarterbacked and Adam Gase coached Miami Dolphins. So a little bit of a coincidence there. But they did it completely differently. In that game, Tannehill and his receivers were consistently connecting on big plays. They beat the Raiders 28-20 in that game, but averaged 9.56 yards per play. So essentially, they're picking up a first down every time they ran an offensive play by average. In week 3, these Dolphins averaged just 5.44 yards per play, which is mediocre number. So it was a really, really strange game. Obviously, Tua had the back injury, what he said was a back injury. He's going to play tonight. That was the report from Tom Pelissero. Tua and Jalen Waddle will play tonight. Their big-ticket left tackle, Teron Armstead, is also going to play tonight. All of that is good news for Tua, obviously, going up against Trey Hendrickson in the Cincinnati pass rush with a banged-up back. Now, Let's get into a little bit more. Miami is, by the way, 4-game ATS winning streak. They're 3-1-1 ATS in their last 5 road games. So Miami's been a bet on team on the road. And the Dolphins are 5-1 to unders in their last 6 road games. Of course, how much does this mean given Mike McDaniel wasn't the coach for a large part of that? So I'm not sure how much I read into that. Now, Tua against the Bills was 13 of 18 for 186 and a touchdown. He had just 11.4 fantasy points in that contest. And now, of course, y'all know what happened. The late hit that was penalized for the Bills, where Tua's head seemed to bang off the turf. Well, they're categorizing that as a back injury. And Tua apparently also has an ankle injury that he's going to play through in this game. But the NFLPA, per Adam Schefter, is seeking a review of the concussion protocols because I said on air, I was on another program, and I said at the time, I'm like, there's no way he's coming back in this game. He looked drunk. Well, Tua apparently said he was stumbling around because his back hurt. I don't know how much I buy that, but he did pass the concussion protocol. So anyway, Tua for fantasy in this game. Coming off of a lower volume game, but obviously volume dictates fantasy in a large part. But he's going up against a Bengal defense that is allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks so far. Just 11.2. Tua scored just 11.4 last week. But the Bengals have also faced 3 guys who are going to finish the year as backup quarterbacks, okay? They've played Mitchell Trubisky. He's going to get benched for Kenny Pickett. He should have been benched for him already, but he's going to be. Cooper Rush, obviously, he's doing a good job down there in Dallas, but Dak Prescott should be back in a couple of weeks. And Joe Flacco, who already is back to being a backup because of Zach Wilson returning to the fold this week. So I'm not really sure how I view that. I'm viewing Tua as a lower-end, volatile quarterback one in this matchup. Obviously, a viable start. Jalen Waddle is going to play in this game. But the back injury does give me a little bit of the willies when I'm talking Tua this week. Now, when you only run 39 offensive plays, some people are going to be disappointing for fantasy. It's inevitably going to happen. And the disappointment last week for Miami was Tyreek Hill. He had just 2 catches for 33 yards receiving on 4 targets. Now, 4 targets for Tyreek Hill from Tua and Teddy Bridgewater in that contest was a 20% target share, okay? So it's not like he was just invisible out there. It's just they didn't run a whole lot of plays. And of course, but this is a guy who averaged 30 fantasy points per game in his first 2 games with the Dolphins. You're playing Tyreek Hill, especially since Jalen Waddle is a little bit dinged up in this contest. So Waddle's dinged up. Now, Waddle has seen more targets in consecutive games than Tyreek Hill after his 6 target and 4 catch 102-yard game last week against the Bills. He also added a 9-yard carry to give him 15-plus fantasy points in 8 of his last 9 games. So Jalen Waddle, man, he was the guy who dropped down fantasy boards because, well, I don't know what this offense is going to look like. They brought in Tyreek Hill. I don't know how Tua is going to be. Jalen Waddle has been, so far, a league-winning pick at his 4th-round ADP. And that's not to say Tyreek Hill won't be at his 2nd-round pick ADP. I think he showed you in weeks 1 and 2 what kind of ceiling he has. It's just that I think last week the game flow really got in the way of Tyreek Hill producing in that contest. This is the thing about Miami, though, that makes them kind of a team for fantasy that's really, frankly, easy to break down. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill have combined for a 58.4% target share. They have been targeted on 59 of Miami's 101 pass attempts this year. There's no other room right there for anybody to make a consistent fantasy impact. And anybody else scoring a touchdown is just really going to be a disappointment, at least in the passing game, and we'll get to the running game. Mike Gesicki scored in week 2. I had an underbet on his yards. He's not a great fit in this offense. They much prefer tight ends who can block in line, and that is not Gesicki's game. Gesicki could have a little bit of a bigger role, though, this week, and because for reasons I'll get to in a little bit. Now, the Bengals, though, if you're looking at Hill and Waddle, have allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points per game to wide receivers, again, facing Mitchell Trubisky, Cooper Rush, and Joe Flacco. Now, the thing about Trubisky, Rush, and Flacco is those guys at least have some decent weapons. Rush has CeeDee Lamb. Trubisky's got Deontay Johnson. Joe Flacco has that pretty deep jet receiving core. The Bengals have done a really good job limiting those guys. Now, while playing with the Chiefs last year, Hill did have 13 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown against Cincinnati. Different team, but we know Tyreek Hill can get it done against just about everybody. So the thing about Mike Gesicki, by the way, I'll get into this. Cedric Wilson, who was signed to be the Dolphins slot receiver this year, is dealing with a rib injury. He played through some discomfort and has really done nothing this year of note. Cedric Wilson is banged up. Gesicki was a predominant slot receiver last year. I just wonder if they'll use him as a big slot in this game. You don't have to worry about him blocking in line. That they'll let Durham Smythe do that. But I wonder if Gesicki, if you're looking at maybe a long shot touchdown prop, which we'll get into in the final segment of the show, maybe he's a guy who you look at. The other thing that people are really interested by with the Miami Dolphins, or maybe not interested by, maybe frustrated by with the Miami Dolphins, is this backfield. What is the rhyme or reason? Chase Edmonds got paid and was the lead back in week 1. I didn't think he played poorly in week 1. I didn't think that was something that Chase Edmonds was like, oh boy, you better watch this going forward, guys, because Chase Edmonds looks terrible. And no, I didn't think that was the case at all in week number 1 with Chase Edmonds. 4 catches for 40 yards. I don't think this team's going to be a team that's going to run the ball with alacrity anyway. He did only have 12 carries for 25 yards, but that's not Chase Edmonds' game. He caught 4 passes for 40 yards. Tua Tagovailoa throws for damn near 500 yards in week 2, and Chase Edmonds has 1 catch for 8 yards. Lost a prop bet on that. And by the way, in week 2, Raheem Mostert was operating as their lead back. Neither back has been particularly impressive, though. It's Mike McDaniels. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan system. This is a team that likes to run the football. But last week, Raheem Mostert, 8 carries for 11 yards, didn't catch either of his 2 targets. Meanwhile, Chase Edmonds, after Raheem Mostert ran ahead of him, scores 2 rushing touchdowns, 6 for 21 and 2, and he had a 6-yard catch on his only target. But he still played fewer snaps than Raheem Mostert. He had his lowest snap share of the season in week 3. This is essentially a 50-50 split on a team that's not having success running the football. Therein lies one of the problems, though, because the Bengals are allowing just 3.6 yards per carry, but they're going to be down DJ Reader, one of their best run defenders. He's out with a knee injury. So maybe if I'm playing single game DFS, I'm looking at maybe Mostert or Edmonds as a cheap option, just see if they get in the end zone. But I don't know how to predict these short touchdowns. And touchdowns have been one of the problems. Look, if you have Tyreek Hill if you have Tyreek Hill, you're disappointed by last week, but I don't know what else to tell you. Like, you have to start him. They ran only 39 plays. If you have Jalen Waddle, you've been really happy with him through 3 weeks. But the one issue has been some touchdowns. River Craycraft, the older brother of Joaquin Craycraft, scored in 2 consecutive weeks. He just got promoted to the active roster. Mike Gesicki scored a touchdown this year. Chase Edmonds gets 2 short rushing touchdowns. And of anything you don't expect Chase Edmonds to do, it's get goal line work. So a couple of these touchdowns have gone by the wayside. But any other way, I'm picking nits here with a Miami offense that really, to me, from a fantasy perspective, is a 2-man show plus Tua. It's Hill and Waddle and Tua, and then everything else is a spare part. Like, if you have Mostert at the end of your bench and you're like, hey, I want to go pick up Romeo Doubs, man. That Romeo Doubs, I was really impressed with him for Green Bay. I've got I'm really hurting at running back, and I don't feel comfortable starting Mostert, but Khalil Herbert was out there on the waiver wire. I needed to pick up Khalil Herbert. Yeah, that's the kind of guy I can drop for him, even though it's always difficult to drop somebody who's kind of associated with what looks to be so far a pretty damn good offense with the Miami Dolphins. It's always hard to drop somebody associated with that. If I had to play a guy in this backfield against Cincinnati, it would probably be Edmonds. Miami is an underdog. 48.5 is the total in this game. And in theory, Edmonds is the better receiving back. Now he has just 2 catches for 14 yards over his last 2 games. So far be it from me to tell you, hey, I'd rather play J.D. McKissic right now because at least I know J.D. McKissic is going to get 5 targets. But Edmonds is part of a better offense, negative game script. If I'm playing one of these running backs tonight, it's probably going to be Edmonds. Mostert. And then when you get into DFS and you get into single game DFS, you're talking leverage plays, right? So Mostert, not a guy who's going to excite anybody after having 8 carries for 11 yards last week. Well, what if he busts off a long run? We know he can do that. There's no DJ Reader in this game. What if they draw up a screen for him and he takes it to the house? Like, those are always the things you have to think through if you're doing single game DFS, if you're making prop bets. Hey, what if this happens? I don't think it's likely, but what if? Do I have that advantage over the field? Do I have that advantage over the massive plus odds on the prop bet? Those are some of the things you have to think about. So in summation, Miami's offense, I think, is a 3-man show. I am downgrading Tua slightly this week because of the injuries. I would be downgrading him severely if I knew Teron Armstead or Jalen Waddle weren't going to play in this game, but looks like both of those guys are going to be good to go. So I'm thinking Tua is going to be as well insulated as possible, given the injuries, given the situation up there in Cincinnati. So when we come back here on Better Sports Today, going to get into some of the Bengals trends, some of the Bengals plays I like. The Bengals right now have 2 guys who are drastically underperforming their roles so far. I'm going to get into that because I think both of them are buy low candidates on the fantasy football market. My name's Joe. This is Better Sports Today. Catch you in a couple of minutes.
Hard Fantasy with Simon, JL, and Coop.
JL, I think this is the game everyone's been waiting for, and the moment in this game that we are probably going to have to talk about for at least the next 15 minutes. The Miami Dolphins took down the Buffalo Bills 21-19, and we got to talk about it. The play of the game, the butt punt.
The butt punt.
Punted straight into Trent Sherfield's abyss between his legs is where that
booty
football
patootie.
It was straight up there. It could not have been aimed better up that tuchus. Like, he just went for it. Like, you look at the picture, shout out USA Today photographer that caught that image, because wow, moment of impact, and you can really see just how well aimed between the cheeks that ball was. And Craig said, did y'all see Mark Sanchez's tweet to the punter? I did. Mark Sanchez tweet, stay out of my lane, bro.
That's pretty good.
I love all these self-aware tweets yesterday. Mark Sanchez, Orlovsky, like, they're just coming in and like poking fun of themselves.
Yeah.
That's pretty good stuff right there.
Corey, Nando, and friends. Presented by Mayo Media on Better Sports Network.
Speaking of TV, last night I tried to watch Aaron Judge.
Did you watch the K-Rod broadcast?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Look, I went to ESPN Plus and I'm like, I want to watch this K-Rod thing because they had Roger Clemens and they had Barry Bonds on. Bonds brought up when Clemens hit him on his piece of armor. And Clemens was like, oh, it was a strike, man. It was a strike.
No,
like,
Clemens was like, if you wear, and I don't blame Clemens, if you wear that thing, right, that piece of armor, and you on top of the plate like that, target practice. I'm going to see if I can hit that joint.
And he was, I mean, Clemens, it was a strike. Get off the plate is basically what he said.
Yeah, exactly. Get off the plate.
Can you imagine the 3 of them? Like, you're Michael Kay, and you're sitting there with Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez,
and Roger
3 guys who should be in the Hall of Fame and are not. Like, who should have been like first ballot, slam dunk Hall of Famers.
That's the problem with the game.
We should get them on the show. All 3 of them together on this show.
That'd be cool. Corey, Nando, and friends. They're the friends.
They're the friends. I mean, why not, right? They seem like nice guys.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
I started watching the Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix last night, which I knew a lot.
That looked pretty freaky, man. Is it as frightening and kind of eerie as it looks?
Yeah, it's like disturbing. Like, there's no.
You think? He
there-
ate people, Ray. It better be disturbing
Well,
to you.
I know the story. He ate people and I murders. I knew, but I didn't know he was drunk all the time. And
Well,
there's
Ray,
so-
I mean, we've all been there. You get the munchies when you're
Right.
drunk. That would be actually a defense in court. Your Honor, I was drunk the whole time. I was hungry and I needed food, and my neighbor was there.
Right.
What am I supposed to do?
and he had like beer cans all over his place. There was a lot of Miller and Bud. I guess he was not only was he a person of opportunity with the killings, he was a beer drinker of opportunity. Because I don't think you normally do one and the other. You should do one or the other.
I don't want to tell AB or Miller how to do their business, but don't go marketing that Jeffrey Dahmer loved your beer
Right.
while he was eating kidneys.
Welcome back to Better Sports Today. My name is Joe Dolan. I'm on until noon Eastern for my lunch break. But I'm not going to be taking a lunch break, and neither should you, because right after me is Lunch Money with Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers. And they'll probably be doing a lot more talk about the Thursday Night Football game, a little baseball talk, a little horror TV series talk from Kyle and Ray. Looking forward to that program, as you guys should. Yeah, I'm Joe at FG_Dolan on Twitter. You can find my work on fantasypoints.com, where I am a co-owner and managing editor. And what we do is at fantasypoints.com is we talk about football. We make points about fantasy football. You get it? It's got the double entendre there. Fantasy points. See? I thought that was cool. I came up with that, by the way. I'm taking credit for that. Anyway, Dolphins at Bengals. Broke down the Dolphins, a little extensive breakdown of them. Now let's get to the Bengals. The Bengals, 3.5-point favorites, 48.5 being the total at home against Cincinnati. Against Miami here, rather. The Bengals have played under the total in 8 consecutive games. Well, there you go. 48.5, pretty high total for a Thursday night game. I think, I don't know how much that narrative has continued in recent years, but I would think the public side is that Thursday nights are under games. Well, the Bengals are giving you reason to believe that this game could go under. The Dolphins are also 5-1 to unders in their last 6 road games, 48.5 being the total. Cincinnati 9-2 against the spread in its last 11 games. Their 2 losses this year were the 2 against the spread losses as well, as they lost straight up as favorites against Pittsburgh and Dallas. The Bengals fell behind by 2 touchdowns in each of their first 2 games, and I really don't know if that's going to become a common occurrence. As a matter of fact, I'd probably argue that it will not become a common occurrence for the Cincinnati Bengals this year. I think they'll get back on track, and I thought last week against the Jets was a good step because Joe Burrow played his best game of the season so far. On that opening drive against the Jets, he had 8 passes, 8 completions on 10 attempts for 95 yards and a touchdown. He threw for 3 touchdowns, averaged 7.6 yards per attempt, on his way to posting his second game with 23 fantasy points of the season after that crazy one in week 1. Over the last 2 weeks, the Dolphins defense has ceded 318 yards passing and 3 touchdowns to Lamar Jackson. They also gave up 100 yards rushing and a touchdown to Lamar Jackson. I don't anticipate that from Joe Burrow today. And Josh Allen threw for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Dolphins last week. But of course, the Bills ran 90 plays in that game. Cincinnati's been running quite a few plays because playing from behind, but no NFL team wants to run 90 plays. Something's going wrong. Like, I think if you tell a coach you're running 90 plays, he's like, we're playing from behind or went in overtime. Don't like that. If you're telling a coach they ran 70 plays, he's like, ooh, we might have been humming. 90 is probably a little too much. Lamar Jackson and Allen have, obviously with those big numbers, have each gone for 27 plus fantasy points against the Dolphins the last 2 weeks. Again, different circumstances, but on paper, a pretty good spot to be starting Joe Burrow in this game. Now, Jamar Chase. Here's one of the two guys I teased who has been drastically underperforming expectations. He had his lowest output through the air since he managed just a 3-yard catch against the Broncos in Week 15 last year. Now, people forget about that. That Jamar Chase in the end of that historically great run that he had at the end of last season, especially from a fantasy perspective, right? Carrying fantasy teams, he had a single catch against the Broncos in Week 15 last year for 3 yards. Now, here's the beautiful thing about Jamar Chase. Even though he had just 29 yards receiving against the Jets last week, he scored a touchdown and he caught 6 passes, which gives him 8 straight full games with 5 or more catches. That's really good news for Jamar Chase. And here's the thing about him. I know I don't know the exact number right now off the top of my head, but Jamar Chase is drastically underperforming his expectation right now. Drastically. And we know the how many times that we've seen Jamar Chase nearly haul in a touchdown this year, and it's backed by review or backed by penalty or he dropped it. The touchdowns are coming. Now at fantasypoints.com, we have a great stat developed by our guy Scott Barrett and the data team that we have assembled. It's called expected fantasy points, and that's exactly what it is. It calculates the number of fantasy points a player could be expected to have scored based on what an average play in a situation produces. So, for instance, I'm just going to throw an example, and this is not going to be an exact example, but I want you guys to get the idea. So, it's simple. If a wide receiver or a perimeter wide receiver gets a target from the 5-yard line, and this is going back over a number of years of data, how many fantasy points is that player expected to score on that target? Let's just say, okay, a wide receiver who gets a target from the 5-yard line that's targeted in the end zone, well, he's going to score a touchdown on 50% of those targets. And he's going to catch the ball on that target 75% of the time. And he's going to pick up 5 yards on that target 50% of the time. You calculate the expected fantasy points on that play. Well, right now, Jamar Chase is scoring 17.8 total fantasy points in PPR. His expected fantasy points based on his usage thus far is 21.9. That's actually the number 2 expected fantasy points at wide receivers behind just Cooper Kupp. So Jamar Chase, there is some positive regression coming. He's underperforming his expectation by 4.1 fantasy points per game. Tough matchup with Xavier Howard. Xavier Howard is dinged up, though. Stephon Diggs in this matchup last week, 7 catches for 76 yards and a touchdown. And he did do that while playing through very painful cramps. So I'm not reinventing the wheel here by telling you that I like Jamar Chase this week, okay? Everybody likes Jamar Chase. But he should be expected to be better than he already has been, which is good news. And T. Higgins, the other wide receiver here, he does not have an injury designation in this game. Somehow, again, 2 guys on 2 different sides of the ball in this game. I don't know how T. Higgins passed concussion protocol last week after already having a concussion in week 1, and he took that cheap shot from LaMarcus Joyner in week 3, but he passed it. He returned to that game. And he nearly had a monster game. He missed out on a spectacular toe-tap touchdown. I thought it was a catch. If you remember the play, it was in the back of the end zone last week against the Jets, and they called it incomplete on the field, which obviously is what made it a little bit more difficult to overturn, but I thought it was a catch. But he's still putting up 11 catches for 164 yards and a touchdown on 17 targets over the last 2 games. And of course, he left early with a concussion in the season opener. So that's kind of affected his numbers thus far. But this is an offense, and we're seeing it with both of these offenses, okay? And we're seeing it with, not to say the Bengals have been efficient so far, but we know what the Bengals can do at the higher end of their outcomes. The Dolphins have been efficient. The other undefeated team in the NFL, the Eagles, have been very efficient. What you're seeing here is, when you have two alpha receivers, the way Miami has, the way Cincinnati has, the way Philadelphia has, is a guy going to have a down game every now and again? You know, we saw it with Tyreek Hill last week. In week 1 in Philadelphia, we saw it with Devontae Smith getting goose-egged. But when you have a good offense and you have two alpha receivers, both of those guys are going to eat at some point. Sometimes, as we saw with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown last week with Philadelphia, as we saw 2 weeks ago with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in Miami, and as we saw all of last season with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with Cincinnati, both of those guys can go off in any given game. So T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, these guys, in an offensive environment like this, these guys both can be wide receiver ones, okay? Now, if we're looking at number 2 wide receivers, which is what I would say Gabriel Davis is for the Buffalo Bills, he had just 3 for 37 last week against the Dolphins, but he did have a touchdown go through his hands. So I think this is a beatable matchup. I think Miami's defense is not bad. It's certainly not a defense that I'd say, oh man, look out, they're gonna shred. No, it's not that. But I do like a lot of what's going on here for the Cincinnati offense. By the way, T. Higgins, if you're looking for a further endorsement of him, maybe as a prop bet guy, I think he's got the better matchup of the two. You know, I think Xavier Howard could do some shadowing with Jamar Chase. They'll play sides a lot. Nick Needham is typically the guy who would draw T. Higgins coverage based on where T. Higgins aligns. And the Bengals move Chase and Higgins from side to side. Occasionally they'll put them in the slot, but Tyler Boyd is almost always their slot receiver. Tyler Boyd is second in the NFL in slot routes run behind Dortch. But T. Higgins, Nick Needham is the more beatable of Miami's two corners. Let's get to Tyler Boyd, by the way. You needed a wide receiver 3. He had 4 for 105 and a touchdown last week against the Jets. He had a 56-yard catch and run. Terrible tackling. But the one thing that had been missing from Cincinnati's offense the first 2 games was really the intermediate passing game. They couldn't throw deep, which is what they want to do eventually. They couldn't throw deep because the offensive line had been so freaking bad. But the intermediate passing game was really what was missing from Cincinnati. They reestablished that against the Jets. And Tyler Boyd was a part of that. And if you're looking for just pass history, the most basic, Isaiah McKenzie, 7 for 76 and a touchdown last week out of the slot for the Buffalo Bills. Stephon Diggs plays out of the slot. So Tyler Boyd's got a chance here. At tight end, Hayden Hurst was looking like a guy who might become the sleeper of the year. He had 5 catches in each of his first 2 games, but he groin injury in week 3 against the Jets and had just a single catch. Not a guy I'm starting right now. The quick turnarounds, that's not a guy. Even in single game DFS, I don't know if I like that. Now, maybe you're just trying to create some leverage because I don't think anybody's going to like Hayden Hurst with the injury, but I'm not sure I like Hayden Hurst in single game DFS just playing through the groin injury. So let's talk Joe Mixon. Picks up an ankle injury in last week's game against the Jets. Now, Zach Taylor comes out and says, hey, guys, look. Joe Mixon could have gone back in that game. You know, we were up. You know, we wanted to rest him. And lo and behold, while he's listed on the injury report with the ankle injury, he does not have an injury designation in this game. So he's going to play and presumably at close to full strength. Mixon, he's yet to find the end zone this season after scoring 16 times last year, and his fantasy points have unfortunately fallen. in 3 consecutive games, from a high of 21.5 in week 1 when he had like close to 40 opportunities to a low of 6.8 last week. And Samaje Perine cleaned up the garbage last week, got himself a touchdown. Mixon's averaging just 2.8 yards per carry behind this revamped offensive line, which, by the way, I think will get better. But he's at least posted at least 3 catches in 8 straight games. The Dolphins are giving up just 3.7 yards per carry to running backs, but running backs also have the 5th most catches per game against them. And here is why I really like Joe Mixon last week. You know, I gave you that stat with Jamar Chase about his expected fantasy points and what he's been expected to do based on the fantasy points. Well, per our guy Scott Barrett, Mixon is currently the league's #1 positive regression candidate, or buy low candidate, if that's how you want to phrase it. And there isn't even a close second. I think Javonte Williams is it, but it's not close. Per Scott Barrett's expected fantasy points report, a must read at fantasypoints.com, among all running backs, Joe Mixon right now is 1st, 6th, and 3rd in expected fantasy points over the first 3 weeks of the season. So despite his numbers falling down consecutively, he's been a top 6 running back in opportunity in each of the first 3 games. He currently leads all players, all running backs, receivers, and tight ends in expected fantasy points per game. And yet, among all running back, wide receivers, and tight ends, he's just 53rd in fantasy points per game, despite being 1st in expectation. And he's just 17th among all running backs. He's averaging 2.7 opportunities inside the 10-yard line per game, which is 2nd most in the NFL. He's getting 2.0 opportunities per game inside the 5-yard line, which is 2nd most in the NFL. And he's basically been expected to score a full touchdown per game, which is the most in the NFL. But he scored 0 touchdowns. And it's having a massively negative impact to his fantasy production, basically losing him 6.0 fantasy points per game. If he were just perfectly average in touchdown efficiency, now, some guys are better at it than others, but touchdowns historically have been a very noisy stat from a fantasy football perspective. If he were perfectly average, he'd be 3rd in fantasy points per game. And we know Mixon can score touchdowns. He scored 16 of them last year. So it's not like he's like this Matt Forte guy who just doesn't get in the end zone at the goal line. We know Joe Mixon can do it. The most alarming aspect with Mixon is he had just 38 yards per scrimmage in a far superior matchup against the Jets last week. I understand that. But his role is so good. Obviously, the ankle injury was part of that. If he scored a touchdown at the end of that game and Samaje Perine didn't, we're probably not even having this discussion. But I'm throwing this out there because there's a ton of reason to be bullish on Joe Mixon going forward. There's a ton of reason to be bullish on Joe Mixon tonight. And there's a ton of reason to be bullish on Joe Mixon going forward throughout the season. And there's a ton of reasons to suggest you should maybe throw a trade offer out there for Joe Mixon before tonight's football game. Hey, you got Joe Mixon, man, but your team's 0-3. Oh man, you need some. He's got the ankle injury. He's not scoring touchdowns. What's going on? Here, I'll throw you a bone. I'll throw you a couple of players you can use. You always want to be on the better side of a 2-for-1 deal. And the better side of the 2-for-1 deal is almost always the one. Hey, man. Oh, dude. Look, I picked up Khalil Herbert off the waiver wire. Oh, Greg Dortch. Oh, he is catching so many passes. What? Khalil Herbert's going to be better than Joe Mixon this week. Here's Khalil Herbert and Greg Dortch. Here's Khalil Herbert and Romeo Doubs. Picked them both up off the waiver this week. You can use them both this week, man. Mixon's disappointing. I'll take Mixon off your hands. Maybe you're deep at wide receiver and you're not deep at running back. Oh, guys, dude, you need wide receiver help. I need running back help. Let's do a little 1-for-1. Let's do a little Hollywood Brown for Joe Mixon. Both of these guys are getting a lot of opportunity. Neither one of them scoring. Let's do a little 1-for-1. I think Mixon's a really good trade candidate. I'd go get him, and potentially before tonight's game, because I think he's going to have a big one. We'll talk about just how big a game I think Joe Mixon's going to have. We're going to go through all the prop bets, anything that sticks out to me, anything that I'm looking at, touchdown bets, yardage bets, I'm looking forward to it. We only got 15 minutes left in the program, guys, here on Better Sports Today. We'll go through some prop bets when I come back in a couple of minutes, and we'll wrap up the show here, Better Sports Today on the Better Sports Network.
The Play with Fensty and Ronis, presented by FantasyAlarm.com.
Brandon Staley says Joey Bosa suffered a significant groin injury. My goodness, the Chargers. Dude, I'm out. All right, I do this every year. They suck me in. Every year I'm on the Chargers. And what do? They burn me, man. Burn me. Injuries across the board. How was Justin Herbert in that game late? Why did he even play?
That's a good question.
That line moved significantly. It went down to 3.5. So he said, all right, Herbert's probably not going to play. And then on the scoreboard, it said that Chase Daniel was the starting quarterback. Then the line moved again. And, unbelievable, man. So
how much does it have to suck being that guy that tweeted that out? That, on the video scoreboard during dress rehearsal, Chase Daniel.
But when you were reading the tea leaves, you have to be like, you know what? This is not a good play. Like, you can't roll with him. He's banged up. There was questions all week. They're a disaster right now. They lost Slater, one of their linemen for the year. They have so many injuries right now. It's the same story with the Chargers every single year, man.
Corey, Nando, and Friends, presented by Mayo Media on Better Sports Network.
Allen Robinson, a dog. Once again, a dog. Allen Robinson. Hard to trust him in your lineup. You know what I'm saying?
Trust? Like, I would trust him to do what at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Like, be invisible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Here's it now. This comes from our boy Tommy B. Such an interesting theory. So Tommy would say, and Allen Robinson is like the perfect guy to do this theory with. When a player gets off to a bad start like this, that you drafted highly, don't put him on your bench. Cut him.
Yeah.
Because as long as he's on your team, you're going to think this is the week, and that week is not coming. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you're just eating up all of these bad games. So instead of putting them on the bench and keep tempting yourself, just be done with them. Cut them. And that's where I'm at on Allen Robinson right now. Cut him.
Lunch Money with Kyle and Ray, presented by FantasyGuru.com.
That's the point people miss with Kelsey. They argue there isn't volatility. They argue that he is the dominant dude every week and he gives you an edge every week. And that's why he deserves to be drafted in the second round. He is just that. I get it. He's the best tight end. But Ray, they're acting like every week is a consistent 15, 16, 17 points. It's just not.
At the end of the season, he's going to give you an A+ performance.
No, within the position, he gives you an A+. I don't need an A+ at tight end. I need A+ at running back. I need A+ at wide receiver. I don't need it at tight end, but people think they do. But my argument is, when are people drafting Travis Kelce? People are doing this everywhere, everywhere. And their argument is he's awesome every week. He's the best. We need one tight end. That's it. We need 5 running backs. You're drafting one tight end and you're telling me I got to get the best guy in the second round. I'm going to overpay at a position I don't need. It's just not worth investing in, because even the best guys, they're nowhere near the top 10 on occasion.
Just my thoughts out to anybody impacted by Hurricane Ian down south here, certainly farther south than I am here in South Carolina. Hopefully I've been able to give you some sort of reprieve today. Hopefully the channel's been able to give you some sort of reprieve. And hopefully the Thursday night game is going to be able to give you some sort of reprieve. Just understand that you are in my thoughts. Coming up after me here in 10 minutes or so, Lunch Money, Kyle Elfrink and Ray Flowers. They'll be continuing to preview Thursday night football, continuing to preview this weekend's games, continuing to preview the baseball slate that's coming up tonight. So I hope you really continue to check out the program, check out the Better Sports Network. So Dolphins and Bengals, again, 3.5 the Bengals, 48.5 the total. All the trends point to the under, which scares the hell out of me. And also, I'm a fantasy guy, so I want points scored. My lean here is Cincinnati. Miami's defense on the field in just absolutely brutal conditions last week in Miami for 90-plus plays against Buffalo. Stephon Diggs said he had never been that tired in his life. He had IV in each arm. Then Miami had to travel on a short week. If this number looks a little bit bigger than you anticipated, that's why. Miami hitting the road following awful conditions and a defense that could be very tired. So I think Cincinnati is well equipped to take care of that tonight. I think Cincinnati is going to be better rested. I don't want to say better prepared. I'm not going to throw Mike McDaniel out there. They're going to be better rested, and they're going to have less travel. That's a win for Cincinnati in this game. So Cincinnati, after winning last week in the biggest bet on spot, back still against the wall, though. Cleveland and Baltimore are each 2-1. You're the defending AFC champion. Miami's 3-0. This is a big spot for Cincinnati, and that's why I like the Bengals given the 3.5. Let's get to some player props. Anytime touchdown props. Very clearly, look, you're not going to outsmart the books too much, but very clearly, they know Joe Mixon's had a disappointing season. But they know, I gave you all the expected fantasy point stats from Scott Barrett and his metric. Joe Mixon has had massive touchdown opportunity this year. He just hasn't converted. DraftKings Sportsbook has Joe Mixon minus 135 as an anytime touchdown score. So basically, they're telling you, oh, Joe Mixon's going to score a touchdown in this game. Or at least we think Joe Mixon's going to score a touchdown in this game. Not seeing much value there. Not seeing much value on Jamar Chase at plus 100. Looking for somebody. Mike Gesicki at plus 295 is interesting to me. That's a little shorter than I would want. But that does seem at least a little interesting to me. Our boy River Craycraft down there at plus 500. No, thank you. I mean, I know he scored in 2 consecutive games. Maybe if you're like, hey, I'm listening to Dolan. Oh, by the way, the Fokker, that's Butterscotch back there. Yeah, she is a woman of leisure. She's really enjoying herself. So I have my crimpet here as well. I don't want to twist my screen and mess up my connection, but I have both of my dogs back there. If you want to get in on the Joe Mixon like kind of touchdown action in this game, I would think first touchdown might be the way to go. Plus 550. Last touchdown maybe the way to go. Or if you're like, oh, Dolan, I love these stats you've been giving out. I really do. Mixon, man, he's due to get in the box a couple of times. He's plus 425 to score twice. So maybe if you're looking for a little bit, I really don't like making those bets, but Mixon 425 to score twice, Chase plus 600 to score twice. I think maybe those are where you go. I don't really like those bets though. Passing props: Burrow 276.5, Tua 258.5. Here's one I kind of like. Burrow's minus 205 to over 1.5 touchdown passes. Tua is minus 110 to over 1.5 touchdown passes with a game total of 48.5 with Miami underdogs. Kind of like the over on Tua's passing touchdowns in that kind of atmosphere. So Tua over 1.5. I mean, there's no value on Burrow over 1.5 touchdowns. So Burrow's plus money to throw a pick. Tua minus 140 to throw a pick. Burrow will take his shots, so maybe some value there. Let's get to the rushing and receiving props. I have no idea what to do with Miami's rushing and receiving props. Raheem Mostert had 11 rushing yards last week, but he played more snaps than Chase Edmonds. His line is at 39.5. Maybe the thought here is, they hand the ball off more. Tua, he's dealing with the back injury. There's no DJ Reader for the Bengals. 39.5 for Mostert is the over-under. Minus juice to the under there, but slightly at minus 120. Chase Edmonds is at 32.5. Probably not a market that I'm dabbling in. Joe Burrow, 11.5. That's a one-run kind of deal, right? He's been running for his life behind that offensive line. But that's a one-run kind of deal. Does he take off and gain 12 yards on a scramble? Mixon, 64.5 is the prop. This has been juiced up a little bit. Minus 130 to the over. Again, the books, the markets have been seeing positive regression coming for Joe Mixon. And I kind of have to agree with it. The favorite, the receiver who's favored to have the most yardage in this game is Tyreek Hill at 75.5. Jamar Chase at 72.5. I kind of like Chase at 72.5 to the over. I like that quite a bit, actually. I think he has a big game tonight. Miami has given up some production. Miami's given up big plays, too. Stephon Diggs went over this number last week in that horrifying weather. Miami gave up a big play to Rashad Bateman in week 2. I think this is a number that I like for Jamar Chase, with Xavier Howard dealing with a little bit of a groin injury. Chase Edmonds at 13.5. He went over that in week 1. He hasn't gone over that in either of the last 2 weeks. Again, this backfield is not one I have a particularly exciting read on. T. Higgins, 64.5 seems about right. He's dinged up a little bit. Tyler Boyd at 41.5, again, seems a little bit right, though you can make the argument that he's got the easiest matchup in the Bengals passing game. Waddle, 67.5, another one where I'd probably lean to the over based on how he's produced so far. Joe Mixon has caught 3 or more passes in 8 consecutive games. He is plus 115 to catch more than 3.5 in this game. Now, I probably don't want to take Mixon over rushing yards and over receptions on the same ticket. That doesn't make sense to me. Not to say he couldn't, but that doesn't really... pick one or the other would be my advice there. He's plus 115 to go over 3.5 receptions. He's caught 3 balls in 8 or more games. So, of course, it's lined at 3.5. That's how they get you. But I think you pick one or the other. Do you like the rushing yards? Do you like the receptions? I kind of like the over for both of these bets, but I'm not betting both of them. Because one, in theory, it would hurt the other. In theory. Unless Mixon has a massive game, which is on the table, but not the easiest of matchups. Chase Edmonds plus 145 to the over 2.5 receptions. He had 4 catches in week 1. He's had 2 catches total since then. Hayden Hurst over 2.5 receptions, minus 170. He caught 1 pass last week and he's dinged up. If you like an under, maybe that's somewhere you look. Mike Gesicki, to me, I think he could get more slot reps in this game with Cedric Wilson dealing with the rib injury. But the problem here is his over 1.5 catches is minus 190. So you're laying a lot of juice there. I think he's going to catch 2 or more passes in this game, but I'm not giving the minus 190 for that problem. By the way, these are at DraftKings Sportsbook. Tyreek Hill, over 5.5 catches, minus 140. He had just 2 last week. Miami ran 39 plays. An exceptionally low number of plays. If you're like, okay, Joe, I like both the rushing prop for Mixon. I like the receptions prop, but I don't want them to siphon off of each other. Well, he's minus 90.5 rushing plus receiving. Now, here is always the thing that gets me here. If you add up his rushing and receiving props, it's just 86 yards. So you're not really getting value there. I think I'd probably lean to the over on the rushing yards for Joe Mixon in this game. I think Joe Mixon to score the first touchdown is a bet. If you like betting first touchdowns, I think Mixon getting in the box is something that they probably want done, knowing that he did it 16 times last year. Jamar Chase, by the way, here's a prop, a special prop that they put up. Waddle and Chase, each with 100 receiving yards and a touchdown, is plus 800 on DraftKings Sportsbook. That's pretty interesting. But anyway, all this program, I've told you, I love Jamar Chase and I love Joe Mixon to bounce back from slowish starts. I especially like Joe Mixon in this game. I think he's going to get involved. Let's just hope the ankle holds up. It's been a lot of fun hosting here on Bettor Sports Today, previewing Thursday Night Football. My name is Joe Dolan. I hope to be with you guys soon. I hope everybody down there in Florida, the Carolinas here, is going to be safe through Hurricane Ian. Kyle and Ray are coming up next. I hope you guys keep tuning into them. I've had a lot of fun here. Enjoy the Thursday night game and win some money tonight.